If the operator, the people in that process's fingerprints aren't on the shadow boards, aren't on the changes, then they don't feel part of it. And if they don't feel part of it, they're not going to own it.
You're listening to the How Manufacturers Improve podcast, hosted by me, Kirby Sneen with the Manufacturers Alliance. If you've ever wondered how some leaders, change efforts, or manufacturing companies have become so successful, then you're in the right place. In each episode, we cover the successes and lessons learned of industry leaders. Then I break it all down into actionable insights so that you can use them to make improvements. This episode is all about the keys to successful Kaizen events and features Robert Dewane with Trane Technologies. Enjoy. Robert, I'm excited to talk to you about what we're calling the keys to successful Kaizen events. Thanks for making the time today.
My pleasure.
Okay, so I've got a handful of questions for you to get into the keys, but for everyone listening that doesn't know you like I know you, would you share just a little bit about your background?
Yes. So I hired on way down in Texas. So I was originally from Minneapolis, and right after my youth, went down to Texas to start a new life, and hired on with a company called Pratt & Whitney. They had barely just become Pratt & Whitney. It was some other older company that just got bought out like within weeks of when I hired. And me, I'm out of school, I'm fresh, so hired on as a thermal process technician. What that means, I'm not going to get into it, but it turns powdered metal into the temperature of the sun and literally becomes part of the material itself. So anyways, and about a couple weeks after, they had this huge meeting, right? They brought the CEO in and their whole lean spiel. Hey, we're now Pratt & Whitney, part of United Technologies. Just so everybody knows, we're going to do lean, and this is what it looks like. And if you're not on board, you have a chance to leave, right? And they told this to everybody together, from the floor employees all the way up to the location manager, the plant manager of that location in Grand Prairie, Texas. Anyways, so it was like, black and white. This is where we're going. Are you on board or not? So, and me, I'm always that person. I just want to try something new, right? I heard this lean thing. What does it mean? Sounds cool. So what they did was, there wasn't a lot of people that volunteered because a lot of people fear the unknown. So me, just knew, wanted to get involved. So what they did was, they started planning these Kaizen events and bringing in these Shingenjutsu senseis, these 70-year-old, 65-year-old Japanese short guys that eat fish eyes and drink sake. And I know that because I had to cater to them every night during our Kaizen event. So, but what I did was, during those 4 or 5 years, I seen the power of, wow, there's really something to this. We had 42-day lead times. We got it down to 7. We truly went from batch flow, like you wouldn't believe, like days of batch to the next cell, days of batch, 7 days batch. They had orders that were late because there's no flow. So, right, the first order doesn't mean it's FIFO, right? So we went from 42-day lead time down to 7. We went to truly cellular manufacturing everywhere we could. Obviously, ovens and furnaces, it's still batch, but then controlled. And what we noticed was, just how responsive we were, what that did to our quality, because now you don't have days worth of bad pieces from a person working on it. You immediately know at the end of the line if something's wrong within hours, right? Stop, right? So it put us in a very good position financially. And when push came to shove, we went through, it was like 2000, shortly after the Twin Towers, right? It was 2002 or 1 or whatever. The economy has tanked. Obviously, the aviation industry, you can imagine what happened, right? With us, our industry. So within Pratt & Whitney, they had to shut down some plants, move some work. They were looking at moving plants to Singapore, right? Well, the power is we had an Oklahoma plant, we had our plant, which was brand new to lean, yet in those 3 years, we told a story and we drove lean and embraced it in a way that none of the plants around us did that did that business. So when push came to shove, they actually closed our sister plant, awarded us that business instead of sending it to Singapore, because we could be just as profitable. That's a powerful story.
So it is a powerful story. How many years were you at Pratt & Whitney? Is that the majority of your background that you want to share?
So I would say that's the most powerful, but what I learned there, I took to many companies that were just fresh to lean. So I learned a lot of stuff the hard way, and I learned a lot of what not to do and what to do. I moved back to Minnesota and then hired on with a couple companies, a packaging company, which once again, it's a bigger company, multiple sites. But what I think I've refined, I've led over 450 Kaizen events, full-fledged Kaizen events in transactional, in service industry, in engineering and design, in finance. 15 years, the vast majority is in manufacturing, right? In very different food manufacturing and plastics, in packaging. So
Yep. Love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That number is, I think, exactly what I was digging for. Over 450
doesn't mean
Kaizen events.
Yeah. Don't put me on a pedestal. What that means is, I have insight, right? Doesn't mean I'm the best out there, but I've seen a lot of different chemistries in events. I've seen a lot of different obstacles, what's working, what doesn't work, things we can avoid. And
that's what the listeners are looking for, that experience.
Yes.
Good, bad, and otherwise.
And the ugly, yes. Yes.
So with this first company you're at, Pratt & Whitney, like leadership was obviously on board. It was very black and white, like
top
you
down,
said.
Top down. Yep.
So for those individuals listening that are at companies and they want leadership support, what do you recommend they do so that they can gain more support from their leaders?
Yeah. So it has to be top down, obviously, to make it work over years, right? But I would say definitely depends on the size of the company, right? But you have your leaders of engineering, design, your manufacturing, your supply chain leaders. You got so if you're crafting a particular Kaizen, the key is who are really truly the stakeholders. What that means is what departments or people, specific people or functions, can make or break or sabotage the event, right? We always go into Kaizens thinking everybody in the company is on board with our same goals, right? But not necessarily. Sometimes shipping and receiving, and we have conflicting goals in departments, right?
Right.
So as you execute, you got to make sure the execution or the strategy is at the highest level where you're not going to have problems when you're on the floor executing or in that particular environment, if that makes sense.
It does. Like sometimes, in procurement, they're like, oh, what's the price per item? And let's get it down.
They don't look
and
at
then
total
everyone
cost.
Everyone in production says, well, hey, what's the total cost? And we need it on the line. We don't want to line down.
Right.
So
yes.
Some of that balancing act.
If there's a lot of conflict in a company and they're not doing annual VSAs, let's say it's a medium-sized company, right? They're not dealing with strategy; they're dealing with on-the-ground execution of, right? I would definitely highly recommend the VSA with the leaders of the company or that plant or location involved. Why? Because you need to get out of that certain things. Number one, all the leaders seeing all the same opportunities.
For those that don't know what a VSA is, give me the quick operating definition.
Yes, it's just a value stream analysis. So it's walking the whole process, making it pictorial, looking at all the touches, flow, looking at times, waste, and just putting your glasses on and saying, where's the waste in this process, right? So as your leadership team goes through that, it could be a short event, 3 days, whatever, accommodate, but you need all the leaders to truly look at the same problems and say, yeah, we all agree this is our biggest problem, then this is our next biggest problem. I thought me and my department, I thought this was the silver bullet, but now that I've seen different areas and walked this VSA, I need to support you because that's going to fix some of my problems too.
Yep.
So I agree. Let's hit this first. When you have that, then you're not fighting for, God, can I please get one person from your department to be on the event? Please, what can I do? I'll bribe you, right?
donuts.
Or whatever it is, right? And when you don't have that, it's going to kill you afterwards, right? Something's going to be missed because you didn't have that input and,
Okay, so then let's assume we'll just continue to tease this out. You've got more people on board. You've got executive sentiment that's in your favor. You've done the VSA, and things are starting to turn. Now you get to look at some of the data into a particular area. Let's say you've got 5 lines. You want to improve flow. You know that you want to get some stakeholders involved. But before you do that, you want to get into the numbers. What data would you look at first?
So give me a particular one. Line numbers? So if it's productivity on a line, okay, if that's more relevant to your people.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So what we would do in our 4 weeks of planning, right? Once again, if you're not planning, then you're planning to fail, right? If you fail to plan, and it's very much true. You're going to get most of your work done on the pre-planning side, right? So gathering any critical information, how many steps. I like to map out the process, the current state, before we even have the Kaizen.
So that you can know literally on the spaghetti diagrams, the data related to walking around and material going back and forth, deliveries and all that. From a data perspective?
So from a data, yeah. So unplanned downtime, if you have multiple machines, unplanned downtime is probably going to be a big one, right? So if you're measuring OEE,
it's a lot too.
There's a lot in there, right? But are we running at speed? Are we creating quality parts with that time we're on the machine? And then how much available time is there? So, those elements, unplanned downtime is going to be a big one, or single minute exchange of dies, setup reduction is going to be huge opportunity. So measuring how many setups, how much time is being consumed or lost, right?
Yep.
Understanding so just the current state. Do you have Standard, go ahead.
Let me throw another scenario at you. Let's say you're looking at one particular line and you want to introduce Kanban. So the assumption is we're going to introduce, or improve flow so that we can improve our inventory turns. And so you want to look at some data to make sure that when you go into the Kaizen event that's going to introduce Kanban, what do you look at?
Yeah, so cycle times, quality data is going to be important as well, right? Because if half your pieces are bad and you set up a Kanban, you're going to trigger twice as fast and you're going to be out, right?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh so hard, but you're absolutely right. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be something?
No, it happens and it's unfortunate.
Okay, so cycle times.
Yeah, definitely cycle times. So any productivity data, right? Even pieces per anything that it depends on what's important to the company. Is it a stand down because we got to fix quality, right? Is it a quality event or is it just a productivity event or what, right? So
cool. Nope, that works. That's great. I appreciate it. So I'm just going to continue to go down the road here. Executives are on board. We've got the data that we need. And so now we want to map out some of the relationships to move the Kaizen event forward. How do you look at relationships to know who's participating and maybe who's not participating in an event or should be?
So who should be in there should be part of the pre-work.
Yes.
Definitely, right? You need to understand beforehand, not necessarily the names, but the functions that need to be present, the expertise that needs to be there, right? So you have to have an understanding of what type of thing you're solving. So if it's productivity, it makes it a little clearer. You want engineering involved. You want probably supply chain, getting the material line side, materials. But are we talking about during the event or planning up to the event? Because normally like the spaghetti charts or the handoff communication chart and that kind of stuff normally we'll do during the event so that people get experience using the tools.
For the sake of a scenario, what relationships are most important up front for planning, execution, and then let's even go post, for the sustainment?
Yes, the relationships. So am I leading or am I coaching a leader in that Kaizen event?
Let's say you're going to facilitate.
I'll facilitate.
Yeah.
But there's actually a team lead that owns it.
Yes.
Okay. So me as a facilitator, I'll work with you on the pre-planning, which actually you can probably share later. I've sent something out for newer people, right? Just check the box. Have you thought of all the key stakeholders? Have you, what's the reason for action? Number one, why do anything, right? Because if you don't have that, you're not going to get the buy-in. Well, you're coming to me saying you want people, but you're not telling me what the bang of the buck is, what's in it for me, right?
With them.
Right. So it should be connected to it's best if it's part of your strategy. So if you have a value stream analysis and everybody agrees in leadership, this is the pecking list of the most important things, makes things a lot easier. Right now it's me just coaching you, go knock on those doors, share what you guys found was that reason for action, that box one, that burning platform, why do anything. So I would coach you, first of all, have that box two is really what's the current state. So if it's we need to get more productivity out, we can't meet demand, well, then it's a productivity event, right? So then you scope it. This is current state. This is our current productivity numbers, our current quality, whatever those baseline numbers are you want to investigate that are relative to what you're fixing, and then what you're shooting for. So if it's productivity, I always shoot for a minimum of 50% production or improvement. If it's changeover reduction, 50% reduction. Why? Because I know you can have 2 to 3 full-blown effective Kaizen changeover reductions on a machine before you have to start talking about capital.
Yep.
Right?
If not more.
Yes, exactly. So me as a coach, I would be helping you. Okay, have you thought about, talking through what this discussion here, what should we be measuring? Does it make sense? Let's hold a stakeholder meeting, make sure everybody's aligned on box 1, 2, 3, that we agree on the burning platform, what we're trying to fix, where we decide to get. Are we all in? Okay, now we need people. Who are you going to give, right? All that stuff happens during the pre-planning, right? So I know if you don't show up on Monday, I'm running quickly to your boss and say we had an agreement, right? Because this is going to make or break, and you're telling me now I don't have anybody, so we've just set aside a week of time to focus on a problem, and now we can't, right? So you have that discussion once or twice in a company. If the right people are, if it's important, things will get fixed really quick. You get the support.
That makes sense. Have you been in the middle of a Kaizen event and then the team has just lost focus?
Yes.
How do you keep them focused?
It's not necessarily the right thing to do.
Oh, tell me more.
If we failed on the planning, so earlier in my career, I've learned. I'm on a personal improvement journey myself, right? We learn. We get insights and we learn what not to do and what to do better. There was one time I got thrown actually to a different state to support. They needed support. They had this important event, which was so critical to the good of the company. It was actually in Houston, Texas, Sugarland, food manufacturing, on a production line. They do stuff for,
Wait, Houston, Texas is AKA Sugarland? Did I just pick that up? This is like the home of food and beverage?
Well, there's a Sugar Land, Texas. It's a place where they have the plants. Sorry.
Got it.
It's a suburb of Houston. Yes, suburb. Just like Katy and all that. So anyways, I got shipped there for a weekend, man. I'm bilingual, so they had a lot of Hispanic, Spanish speaking. So it's like I'm swimming in water. I get to have fun leading. I love facilitating and do it with, cross-functional people in different languages. And it adds a dynamic, right? Because not only do you bring your expertise from the area you come from, but also your dynamics and your culture, so it's fun. So I get there, and I'm on Monday morning. I got the room set up. We're fixing to head out there. I got my face protection on, hairnet. At that time, I had hair, and nobody's showing up. There's like 2 people. I'm like, where is our receiving manager, shipping receiving manager? Where's our production manager? Where's our team lead over this line? Where's our third shift? Oh, we didn't communicate well enough. We missed third shift, and one guy it's like our key people. So I went straight to the plant manager. He's like, well, you can make it work. I know better than this. I'm not going to waste a week here. And at the end of the day, reporting out Friday that we failed. My boss is going to ask why I stayed there. So that is a very specific reason. If you're truly not aligned at the stakeholder level, don't go forward.
You just called it. You're like, we'll just cut it.
Yeah.
Let's not move forward.
Yeah. Now in wisdom, if there's some small wins or something, but then you've just showed them that this is Kaizen. Here's Kaizen is doing a couple things with whoever shows up. Kaizen needs to mean something to the company. It can't mean let's just go have a couple people fix something. So there's a structure. Call it just an improvement, right? But don't call it a rapid improvement event, or that needs to mean something to the company. That means we've set aside important resource and time, and we possibly shutting down line time to make improvements. Why? Because we see the payback, right? And if the payback's not there, don't fix it. If you can't have it a Kaizen event and have a payback like in a month and just like something big, then it's just, don't make it a Kaizen. Don't make it this huge focus. Just go fix it or send someone to fix it, right?
With this scenario, do you think there was some resistance to change, like intentional?
No, this was bad planning. I've been in that situation too, though. I've been in events that have been sabotaged. I've been in events where the brother of the owner of a $1 billion company comes just downgrading you in front of everybody, just cussing and fussing. And I've learned, when you talk about lean, you need to be a lean leader. If you can't have that soft side and you can't be humble, then you're probably not the right person to drive change. Right. That old school dictatorship and flexing muscle, that doesn't work. Right. And I'm glad I did. I just shut my mouth and I apologized profusely. And I'm sorry. I wasn't at fault. You know what? It got up to the owner of the company. It got up to my boss, and they came apologized. Thank you, Robert. But you know what? Thank you for closing your mouth. Thank you for not, and they then, so he was no longer there after. And I'm glad I wasn't moved by that. But if you're in a position of driving lean, you do have to have thick skin. You have to have a passion, because if you're not passionate about it, then anything's going to stop you from driving the change that needs to happen. And you're there for a reason, right? Don't think that leadership knows everything. Don't think the company knows everything. Own the journey. Own it. Own the problems. Be that leader and show people what it really takes to drive change, right?
I love that. That's awesome what you just said. Any other strategies that you could share with people about how to overcome resistance to change or successfully lead people through change?
Yeah. So there's so we talk Kaizen. The first thing that causes detractors on the floor is the lack of knowledge. So people always fear what they don't know. You're coming into my area. You're going to change something. They feel like they're losing all autonomy, right? So the biggest thing is the communication piece. There's a great consultant. He worked for Menasha for several years, Brad Lyons, wonderful guy out of Atlanta. And he said, you know what? When you go to do these events, part of that 4 weeks of planning is the over-communicate. Communicate different ways, different methods, in different times, all, from the floor. Hey, we're going to be in here in a couple weeks. What do? I'm coming in saying, man, and I'm just watching. That stinks lifting that like that, don't it? Yeah. This was a couple weeks ago. I'm down in Wisconsin. I'm just talking to the operator. He's old school. He was probably there before the machine or the building was built. So I know these guys. You can't tell them nothing. It's about solving their problems, right? Don't promise them you're going to make them work twice as fast and you start talking, we're going to cut double productivity. They take that on. No. Be wise. And man, doesn't it stink doing that? Why do you have to walk way over there? Yeah. And I got this guy like hooked, right? This is a couple of weeks because I was going to his, he's just singing my song, right? And I said, can we fix all this? So number one, I got him on board. Now, number two is let them know nothing's written in stone. Look, let's try it. Let's fail fast. Let's fail cheap. Let's just see if there's something that might work. And you know what? We're not going to throw anything out. We'll move it right back. But I'm just asking you to flex. And if you don't like it, matter of fact, I want your fingerprints on here. Let's talk about how we can do this, right? So you lead them to the water and they're more receptive. Nothing, this can be changed back tomorrow. Nothing, I'm not losing anything. But you're engaging them, which is critical because if their fingerprints, if the operator, the people in that process's fingerprints aren't on the shadow boards, aren't on the changes, then they don't feel part of it. And if they don't feel part of it, they're not going to own it, right?
Do you want to implement more Kaizen events but just don't have the time? Do what our top members do. Send them to Lean Practitioner certification so that they can facilitate more events on their own. Click the link in the show notes to learn when the next certification starts. That brings us to my last question for you, sustainment.
Yes.
So then if they don't own it, there's going to be some backsliding. Some people will leave and they'll be like, finally, they left. Let's go back to the way it was.
So great discussion. And where there is no standard, there can be no improvement. Yes. Okay. So MDI is a different discussion, right? You have the driving the ball up, your improvement, but so that ball doesn't come back, you have to have some mechanisms in place, right? Which a lot of companies use MDI, right? We had an event, we're now performing here. Each day we're seeing that. If something happens, what's the countermeasure? But the key, and a lot of people don't take the time to do this. You change a process, you need to now, if there's no standard work, create standard work. Now train people. So one thing that Trane does, Trane Technologies, it's nice being, we got so far to go, but man, there's so many things across so many different parts of our business I like. I mean, they live lean. You get hired on, you follow the lean hiring process. HR's, each function has their standard work. And they follow it to the book and they redline it and there's a Bible, right? So if there's not a process, now after the event, you have a written process, which by that Friday or that last day of the event, you have trained all shifts. The question is, you need to, not the question, the declaration is, you can't leave them. Normally there's a 2-week learning curve, right? They're not going to perform at that new performance level for 2 weeks. We all have that learning curve.
Sure.
So having that coach there, if by hour, are we meeting tech? Are we meeting tech? If not, is it a training? We're not following standard work, or they're not comfortable yet, right? You got to follow up until we're performing, right? But that MDI, lets us know if we're, going down if we're not maintaining.
Okay, so just a couple minutes left here, and then I'll let you go. I know you got a lot on your plate in your mind, but have you seen AI impact Kaizen events, whether it's like help write standard work or support Kaizen events in any way, shape, or form? Are you starting to see that at all?
So Trane is dabbling pretty heavily in the AI as far as, now you said that, we're probably going to have to go and start. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know we're working a lot now with AI. We haven't incorporated into our lean from where I've seen, but our company is very big and has lots of different areas.
So it could be a new frontier for you guys.
I'm pretty sure, yes. I know the AI piece and the assisting.
Yep.
I know that they've given people in OpEx access, key leaders to start. So
like Tinker.
Yeah. It wouldn't take long if that's the case.
That's one of the things that I'm most excited about when it comes to improvements that are going to come next, is seeing how AI is going to accelerate and supplement the pace of improvement. What are you most excited about improving next? Just general question for you.
Just general. Yeah, outside of manufacturing. I mean, I always fix your house first, right? But then after you've got things in order, do we ever have the things in order? No, but eventually the next biggest opportunity is going to be your supplier, or how you deliver to your customer, how fast you design a product, how fast, there's other pieces. And I'd say this too, we always focus on manufacturing. I would just ask some of those companies that have the engineering, that have the new product development, don't leave that off the table, because the real win, the bigger wins, I would say, happen earlier in the process, even before it hits manufacturing. A lot of times we try to fix something after we've already messed it up front, and there's lots of opportunities up front, and that'll only, exponentially help how fast we can improve things on the floor.
Right. Yeah, with that VOC and
Yes.
the design for manufacturability.
Yep.
All those
Yep.
designs.
Yep.
Love it. Robert, it's so much fun having you on. You have so much experience and so much passion. Thanks for sharing it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time.
I'm Kirby Sneen with the Manufacturers Alliance, and this is the How Manufacturers Improve podcast. If you liked learning these high-level best practices from experienced peers and want your team to be able to access more in-depth process improvement and leadership training and education, I'd invite your company to become a member of the Manufacturers Alliance. To learn how top manufacturers are using their Manufacturers Alliance membership to develop their people, improve processes, and get better results, go to mfrall.com or just click the link in the show notes. Thanks for listening.